When they tried to humiliate Buddha, it was just another ordinary day in the life of Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. He was strolling through the city of Azali with his monks when he decided to visit an old friend, King Bimbisara. Now, kings are generally a troublesome lot, but Bimbisara was different. He was a follower of the Buddha and had built a magnificent monastery where the Buddha could stay whenever he visited. In fact, the king had made an appointment with the Buddha for that very evening. He wanted to hear the Buddha's teachings and had set up a grand feast for him and his followers. But some people weren't too happy about the Buddha's popularity. The biggest rival of Buddhism at the time was a local cult, the Ajipicus. Their leader Makali Gosala was a notorious troublemaker who had tried to get the Buddha killed several times, and he wasn't above using underhanded tactics to take the Buddha down a peg. As the Buddha approached the city, Makali spotted him and hatched a new scheme. He sent 2 of his followers to the king, pretending to be messengers from the Buddha. They told the king that the Buddha had just remembered a previous engagement and would not be able to make it to the appointed hour. They suggested that the king and his court should instead spend the evening listening to the teachings of a great sage named Gautama, a contemporary of the Buddha and leader of a rival school of thought. Of course, this was a lie. Macaulay had no doubt the Buddha would prefer to hear Gautama's teachings than his own, so he chose someone whose views were the complete opposite of the Buddha's. Now Macaulay had known the Buddha for many years, and he knew how upset he would get if his followers were insulted. This was an insult of the highest order, and the Buddha could not possibly remain calm. But the Buddha wasn't angry. He had seen through Makali's schemes long ago and wasn't about to let them ruin his day. Instead, he did something that surprised everyone, including Mak. The Buddha simply picked up a flower, walked to the king's palace and handed it to the assembled nobles. Then he turned to Makali and asked, "Who here would like to receive the teachings of Gautama?" When no one answered, he continued, "Very well, then I shall teach you all." And that is exactly what he did. That night, the Buddha taught the nobles about the dangers of anger and hatred, how they were the twin serpents that coiled around the heart and poisoned the mind. He told them how the only way to overcome these destructive emotions was by practicing loving kindness and compassion towards all living beings. His words were like a balm to their troubled minds, and they listened intently as he spoke. Meanwhile, Macaulay watched from the sidelines, his face contorted with rage. He had expected the Buddha to fly into a furious tirade, to scream and shout and condemn him for his treachery. But the Buddha had remained calm and serene, and now the entire court was listening to him with rapt attention. Makahali's plan had backfired, and there was nothing he could do about it. The Buddha continued teaching until late into the night, and when he finished, the nobles were so moved by his words that they begged him to stay in Vasali. But the Buddha had an appointment with his followers and he couldn't let them down, so he declined the invitation and took his leave. As he walked away, he heard Macaulay calling out to him, taunting him for being a false prophet and a deceitful teacher. But the Buddha didn't even bother to reply. He knew that Makahali's words were just the echo of his own inner turmoil, a tempest in a teapot. And that is why, whenever someone tries to bring you down or belittle your achievements, remember the Buddha. Don't waste your time trying to defend yourself. Let their words be like water off a duck's back. Stay calm and serene in the midst of their anger and you will win in the end. Namaste.